Welcome, everyone, to another session of Body Mastery with Stan. Today, we're going to do a special commemoration for a beautiful spirit, Charlie Kirk. I truly believe that the assassination of this young man exposes a tremendous travesty that we have being perpetuated in our world today, particularly here in the United States. And that is the tragedy of what has happened to our youth. I know that people on both sides are going to get all caught up in this fervor of who the assassin is. And there will be different labels being placed on the young man who assassinated another young man. And for this time period that we have together, you and I, Stan, I would like for us to explore what's behind the scene, because I always ask the question, why and
Mhm.
how? How could you and I are both parents.
Right.
And when we see that little baby come into the world, that baby is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
There is not a tinge of malice in the core of that baby. That baby comes into this world with a spirit of love and joy and passion and exuberance for life. And to compare that image with the image of the young man who was guided to the point of shooting another young person. And I say guided intentionally. I
Mhm.
know a lot of times we think that it's about political issues and things of that nature, but today I would like for us to really look behind the scenes at what I believe is a spiritual manipulation of what is happening to our children,
Mhm.
and to look at how was this able to come about. I've been talking with Dr. Tom Lewis, another one of our collaborative partners, and it starts with malnourishment:
Mhm.
physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual malnourishment. Because you and I know, Stan, that when your body is well nourished,
Right.
you have that strength and you have that resilience that is filled with emotions that vibrate in the frequency of love and peace and compassion and things of that nature. It is only when there is a malnourishment that a disease state can be allowed to thrive. And right now, with our youth, they are malnourished. They are physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually malnourished. And therefore, they become susceptible to being guided by disease malevolent entities, whether it be quote unquote spiritual forces or human forces that speak, whisper in their ears, and therefore manipulate the minds, the bodies, the hearts, the souls of our beautiful youth. Stan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm 100% with you, Michelle. And you know, it, it, my daughter broke her arm the weekend that they were moving in with me. Okay. And she went and got a cast on, and she couldn't pick up her child, and it bothered her. It brought her to tears. And I watched that. And I said that pain never goes away. When you see your child hurting, no matter how old they are, whether they're one or whether they're 21 or 31, or I would say 51. I don't have any 51-year-old children, not that I know of. And but when you see another human being hurting, you are driven with compassion, and there is an empathy that takes place when it's your own child. And before we started today's show, you and I were talking a little bit. And one of the things that you said was, and if I can share,
Yeah.
that you don't know that you've done anything quite as amazing as what Charlie did. And my comment was, you gave birth to a child. And that's something that no man will ever be able to do. The second thing that I said, and I probably lost a couple listeners there, um, but the other thing is that when you see that, when you see your child leave and they leave from home, there's got to be a different level of empathy of them leaving because you carried them within inside of you. And as a man, I'm watching my children go their own way. And there is a pulling, an emptiness, a void, not an emptiness, but a void because it's like it's an uncertainty, but we don't know what the future holds. But when they
Mhm.
leave, there's a pain. And the natural instinct is, how can I subvert that? How can I maintain that closeness, but still allow them to have their freedom? I want to say, as an observation of a man, I want to say that it may be even deeper on an unconscious level for a woman when their children leave. There is that, I want to say, if I could imagine, and I do a lot of imagining, an even greater tug because there is somewhat of a different kind of connection, not a necessarily a deeper connection, but a different kind of connection. And when that is pulled, there's got to be something that I can't even articulate.
Yeah.
And then when we see something like this happen, and you were sharing that you were at a conference and at a pinnacle moment, and as soon as that pinnacle moment, you're on the top of the mountain, and then you get the news that Charlie Kirk has been assassinated, the emotional was like the steepest roller coaster where you're at the very height of the tallest, and then it's a straight drop down, and nobody teaches us how to process this.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when you're talking about the malnourishment of our children and our youth, it is not it is not just one element. It's all of the elements that you mentioned.
Exactly.
You know, if you send your children to Rome, they will come back Romans.
Mhm.
Know who you are entrusting your
Mhm.
lifeblood to nurture, to shape, and to guide.
Mhm.
And don't tell me that, I'm on the other side of this now, but don't tell me that it's cheaper to send them to let them go and do what everybody else is doing in the public system because it's
Mhm.
not cheaper. It could actually be a whole lot more expensive.
Well, this situation shows us that it is extremely more expensive. It
Yes,
is priceless. A life is priceless. As you were saying, I was at the PBD conference, the Vault conference for 2025, and our speaker at that exact moment was the infamous Tony Robbins.
amazing.
And the message that he imparted was the importance of understanding how to help people to create transformation in their lives. And he says, a lot of times people think that it's about strategy. If I'm trying to lose weight, it's like, okay, what strategy do I use? And he said, no, that's not where it starts. He said, where it actually starts is the state, your emotional state of being. And that emotional state creates the story that you tell yourself. And then from that story, it creates the strategy or the way in which you live your life.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying, that we really need to start to do a deep dive into understanding what is happening to our youth.
Mhm.
And what I say is that, it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to do a simple arithmetic of subtraction to realize that this young man who assassinated Charlie Kirk was around 18 during COVID.
Right.
That was the time I can remember, like as if it were yesterday. I was so angered about the response, not the virus. I truly believe to this day that the virus would have been mild in comparison if not for the response that occurred. And what I said then, around 1 month into that particular experience, was I made a video about the deaths of despair that we were going to experience for decades to come. That video was actually taken off of YouTube.
Mm.
They removed that particular video. And I'm not a prophet by any means. What I am is someone who just observes.
Mhm.
And we are still not aware of the tremendous repercussions of what was done to our youth during that time period. This young man is probably like my daughter. My daughter was supposed to graduate. And as a mother, you look forward to that year of graduation because that's after 12 years. It was her high school graduation. And because of that response, there was no graduation.
Right.
Because of that response, our children were locked in their homes, tied to these devices, being paralyzed by fear
Right.
for months. To this day, people are still paralyzed by fear. And that fear leads to the weird mental marinating that makes you think that everybody's an enemy. In fact, that is what they told us. Stay away, stay 6 feet away from everybody. They're going to kill you with the virus. And then they further amped up this nonsense by saying, oh, and the people who don't get the jab, they are the enemies. Death to those people. They're horrible. We had comedians talking about things like, well, if they don't want to get the jab, they shouldn't even be able to go into the hospital. And if they're not able to go into the hospital, tough noogies. And the way that we were manipulated into thinking of each other as villains, and it has continued. And you have to recognize that those minds were malleable, fertile grounds waiting for programming.
Right.
And programming that continued over these years since then. I don't think it has even ended, because what I see when I see this group of young people is so much fear. So much fear of the natural world, fear of each other, fear of life, fear of living, to the point where they don't have any sense of identity. They're now confused about who they are. Am I a man? Am I a woman? And to get to that point of saying, if you disagree with me, I need to take you out.
Right.
That is a tremendous fear that has completely paralyzed the state of being of our youth, that has led to them creating a story
Mhm.
about themselves, about others, about life. And that in turn creates the simulation and activation of a strategy where they are simply trying to survive.
Right.
And they're trying to survive in a world that they feel is against them. And that was the beauty of Charlie Kirk. I looked at countless videos of Charlie Kirk, and he was the only person that I can think of that really saw the youth,
Mhm.
saw this critical age group. Nobody else was targeting them. Nobody else was going to them and saying, hey, talk to me.
Right.
Let me hear you. When you look at all of his videos, people would come up and there would be hecklers. And he said, no, quiet. We need to hear this person.
Mhm.
And That's not to say that he's going to waver, because I think sometimes people have the misconception that listening to someone, allowing that person to speak, means that you're going to now, quote unquote, affirm is the big word, what they're saying. But Charlie was unwavering in the truth.
It
And he
was.
would always say, you know what? I hear you. Have you considered such and such? Perhaps we can help you in this way. But it was never a condemnation.
Right.
It was never a shutting down. It was always an opening up. And I guess, what I said to you prior to us beginning is that I feel convicted that I have not been the Charlie Kirk. I have not been the one to open those conversations in terms of going to campuses and things of that nature. And it's challenging because in my own house, my own son has basically shut me out of his life because I don't agree with him. And the difficulty is that that generation perceives the truth as being something that is attacking them. They don't even know how to deal with things anymore.
Right.
And the patience of Charlie to keep on keeping on. I have to make the acknowledgement that, my thing has been, you know what? If that's what you want to do, fine. And I will just stop talking,
Mm.
right? But what Charlie says is when we stop talking, that's when violence occurs. That's when people get ramped up because, again, they don't feel heard. They don't feel seen.
That and such a such an important point is that one of the things that I is on my platform is challenge the narrative.
Mhm.
When I talk about your posture has everything to do with the way that your organs are positioned.
Mhm.
These are the things that I learned, Michelle, and I didn't know them. But once you've been exposed to the truth, that the truth does set you free.
Mhm.
It doesn't come in a pill for every ill, okay? Once you understand that you are in control of your body, you're in control of your mind, you're in control of your spirit. And if you're doing something that is not productive and somebody brings it to your attention, you have two options. You can either rise up in ego and say, I'm not going to listen to that, or you can be inquisitive like a child, childlike, not childish. Childish is the ego.
Yeah,
Childlike says,
receptivity,
why does that
curiosity.
happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want anybody calling me daddy except my own children. And they don't want to call me daddy now, but the thing of it is that their spirit was open to say, why am I seeing this differently? And what am I missing that could be a
Mhm.
possible alternative way to accomplish this?
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, Christ talks about become childlike, not
Yes.
childish. And because when we're open to the dialogue, then
Mhm.
maybe we can eliminate the pain, that the dis-ease, the absence of ease that we're carrying
Mhm.
around in our body.
Mhm.
Or we can go about doing life the same way and still living in the same pain, but we have no one to put that responsibility on except ourselves.
Mhm.
And that responsibility comes by going, okay, what can I do differently? Not better, but what can I do differently to get a different outcome than what I'm having?
And when we look at, both of us are trained with heart math. And again, this is duplicated in what Tony Robbins was sharing. the importance of teaching our children, teaching ourselves first, and
Mhm.
teaching our children secondly, the ability to be able to shift your state of being.
Right.
And so, I would love for you, Stan, if you could share with us in these last couple of minutes, an exercise that we can do to help us, to help our children, when they're feeling anger, when they're feeling fear, when they're feeling frustration, when they're feeling that sense of, I just don't know. What is it that they can do physically to help to shift mentally, emotionally, and subsequently spiritually?
Well, one of the things that people can do is get up and move.
Mm,
Because when you're in a stagnant state, you're dying. If you,
mhm.
if water in a river does not flow, that water becomes diseased.
And that's when mosquitoes flourish.
Our body is around 85% water.
Mhm.
So if you're not flowing, and I'm not talking about going to the bathroom, I'm talking about internal flowing, okay?
Yeah.
Then there is a dis-ease that is
Mhm.
manifesting in your
That
body.
stagnation,
You
that
can't
swamp
you
is
can't
created.
think. You can't think right. You can't be
Mhm.
right. You can't feel right. It's
No.
impossible.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I've been frequenting this restaurant on Tuesdays. They've got tacos for $2. All right. Now, I
Taco
don't
Tuesdays.
I don't necessarily go in there for the tacos. I go in there to communicate with a waiter.
Mm,
And one day I was like, I had salmon made and everything, and it's just like I need to go to town to eat. And I'm like, I don't eat out, and I'm like, okay, well, what place would I go? There's only a couple places, and I was drawn to go to this Mexican restaurant. So I went to this Mexican restaurant. I asked my waiter, as I do everywhere that I go, how can I pray for you? And he said, I'm good. God is good and I'm good. I said, no, how can I pray for you? He said, well, my brother had twins and the babies were born 4 months in advance, early, prematurely,
mm,
and they've been in ICU.
mm,
I said, okay, then we're going to pray for them. So I wanted to go back and check in on him. So a week later, the babies are doing much better. And he's like, it's incredible what happened. Now, I'm not a miracle worker. I'm only
mm,
doing what I'm called to do, okay? And this isn't about religion. Let me preface that.
mhm.
It's not about
Exactly.
religion. This is about a state. So I go back in and he asked me, he says, having a little challenge communicating with my wife. And I said, well, the communication may be from within you.
Mm,
And I said, here's one thing that you can do. Before you start your day, before you look at your phone, before you do anything, before you get out of bed, as soon as you wake up, consciously take 3 breaths, place your hand on your heart, and make a statement. Today is an incredible day, and doors that are opening are already open. Now my eyes are going to see them. And say that throughout the day, and watch what happens. So I go back the next week after I give him that. So I go, on Tuesdays, I'm going,
mhm,
this is why I'm going. I want to see what his results are. I walk in last Tuesday and he says, you're an angel. And I go, I'm not an angel. But what happened? He said, my communication with my wife has escalated. My communication and my understanding with my children has gone like, he said, I know what my communication level is, and it has drastically changed, unlike any other time in my life. And he said, you have been sent in here. Now, I say it's that simple. This is a body hack, a spiritual hack, a mindset hack, a state hack.
mhm,
When you feel good in your body, you feel strong. Your shoulders are back. Your breathing is deep and low. It's not shallow. Your chest is not constricted. Your body's not restricted. And when you're not constricted or restricted, now your state changes. Now you have confidence. You're just expressing it.
mhm,
Have confidence, but with closed shoulders and a head bowed and a back arched, you can't express confidence.
Mhm.
And so this, you get into this state and you shake it off.
Yeah.
So when something happens and it doesn't go your way, just take a moment and shake your body, change your
Mhm.
state, change your
Yeah.
physiology, and then you will change your psychology. And when you change your psychology, the way you think, it will change the way that you act. And when you change the way that you act, you begin to see doors that were already open. Now, wait, who opened the doors? They've been open.
Yes, they've been, you just didn't see them.
And
Hmm.
so that is that is one way that I would say that people could change their state. And it's not a one and done. This is a practice. It takes all but 30 seconds, okay? 30 seconds. If you don't have 30 seconds, we need to have a conversation because you don't have a life. All right? So 30 seconds, give it to yourself and leave a comment, okay?
Yeah.
If it didn't work, let's have a conversation. Let's have a dialogue, okay?
And that is the legacy of
Yes,
Charlie Kirk that we are honoring today. That legacy of conversation, that legacy of community, of people coming together to work through this crazy thing that we called life, to
right.
come to a deeper understanding and appreciation of life and living. So, Stan, I'm extremely grateful to have you here with me to help me and hopefully many others to process what is happening in our world today and to help us to shift from that state of overwhelm and despair that some may be experiencing right now to change the story that we are telling ourselves or that others are telling in order to access a more healthful and prosperous strategy, to accelerate that strategy that will transform not only our personal lives, but the lives of many around us.
Well, thank you,
Okay.
Michelle. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Until next time, ladies and gents.